All right, everyone, settle in. Tonight, we're going to crack open a film that, even now, more than 2 decades later, still feels like a live wire. We're going way beyond the first two rules. We're putting Fight Club on the table for a full philosophical autopsy to really see what makes it tick, what it got so right about our anxieties, and, where its pretty dangerous ideas actually lead. I mean, this one quote, it's pretty much the mission statement for an entire generation's disillusionment, isn't it? It's that whisper of a promise that was completely broken. It's the core complaint of guys who were told they could have it all, only to wake up in a world that just felt empty. The film just grabs you by the collar with this idea right from the get-go. So before we can even talk about the cure the film proposes, we've got to diagnose the sickness first. And Fight Club basically argues that modern life, especially for a certain kind of person, had become a total spectator sport. It was defined by this deep, numbing, spiritual paralysis. And here it is, the central conflict just laid bare. On one hand, you've got the whole value system we inherited from advertising, right? Buy the right stuff, get the right job, and you'll be happy. But the reality for these characters? It's a world of crushing debt and what the director, David Fincher, called a kind of societal emasculation. There's just nothing left to hunt, nothing to build, and really, nothing to fight for. And this is where we see the real human cost of all that. Our narrator, who's never named, is the perfect everyman. He's not a hero, he's not a villain, he's just numb. He tried to do everything he was taught to do, but his apartment isn't really a home. It's just a collection of stuff, a completely fake idea of happiness that leaves him with crippling insomnia and this desperate, desperate need to feel, well, anything at all. So into this total vacuum of meaning steps a solution. Or actually, scratch that, it's more like an explosion. Tyler Durden isn't just a character, he is a philosophical antidote, a seductive, walking, talking ideology. Okay, so to really get Tyler, you've got to understand this concept from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. The Übermensch, or Superman, is someone who just moves beyond society's rules, beyond its ideas of good and evil, to create a whole new set of values for himself. And Tyler's that idea made real. He's charismatic, he's totally free, and he has absolute contempt for the modern world. This right here is Tyler's gospel. It's a direct assault on the consumer culture that has our narrator completely trapped. It's simple, it's powerful, and it hits home because, as Edward Norton said, the film really probed into the despair and paralysis that people feel when they inherit this value system they never asked for. Tyler's whole philosophy is basically the exact opposite of self-help. Instead of self-improvement, he preaches self-destruction. Forget the gym, right? True enlightenment comes from a bare-knuckle fight in a parking lot. It's all about stripping away everything society tells you that you are, until all that's left is your raw, primal, authentic self. Pain becomes the only way to feel real again. But, the film's ideas aren't just in the script. The way David Fincher actually directs this thing is a philosophical statement all on its own. He uses the very language of filmmaking to back up the film's satirical, kind of rebellious core. This quote from Fincher says it all, really. He saw the film not as some kind of manifesto, but as a really dark comedy, a satire. He wanted the audience to be a little uncomfortable, to ask themselves, wait, are they actually advocating for this? The goal wasn't to give you answers, but to provoke, to be, in his words, a seditious little sharp stick in somebody's eye. And you can see this philosophy baked into every single frame. The scenes with the narrator, they're bland, they're sterile. But whenever Tyler's on screen, the world becomes what Fincher calls hyper-real in a torn-down, deconstructed sense. The colors get grimy, the sets look decayed, and of course, you've got those little subliminal single-frame flashes of Tyler before we even officially meet him. It's this brilliant visual hint that he's just a mental projection, the little devil on the shoulder. So what happens when a really seductive idea is followed all the way to its logical conclusion? Well, the third act of Fight Club is this amazing critique of its own premise. It shows the terrifying journey from personal liberation to something much, much darker. I mean, think about it. What starts as a kind of therapy for a few guys in a basement escalates, step by logical step, into a full-blown terrorist group. Project Mayhem takes Tyler's personal philosophy and tries to force it on the entire world through chaos and violence. The goal becomes totally revolutionary. Let's hit the reset button on civilization by wiping out all the debt records. And here's the crazy irony. The very thing that was supposed to reclaim your individuality, Fight Club, it becomes this force of total dehumanization. The members of Project Mayhem, they shave their heads, they lose their names, they become anonymous space monkeys. And Tyler, the great liberator, he becomes a dictator, barking orders through a megaphone in a way that feels chillingly familiar. So, how do you escape an idea that's living inside your own head? The film's climax isn't just a clever plot twist. It's the final, bloody step in the narrator's philosophical journey toward becoming a whole person. Edward Norton actually talked about this. As the film goes on, he basically starved himself, while Brad Pitt just got more and more built, more of an idealized Adonis. It's this incredible visual for the psychological split, right? As the narrator gives up more of himself, his mental projection of Tyler just gets stronger and more perfect. And then comes the moment where the entire film just flips on its head. It forces us, and more importantly, it forces the narrator to reevaluate every single thing we've seen. That seductive teacher, that charismatic leader, that perfect man, he's nothing more than a desperate invention of a completely broken mind. And look, this isn't just some random gimmick for a twist ending. It's a really classic way to show a huge internal change on screen. The narrator couldn't change himself, so his mind literally created someone who could. Tyler is the embodiment of everything the narrator keeps pushed down, all his anger, his desire, his will to just do something. Like Fincher said, for the narrator to truly grow up, he has to metaphorically kill his parents, his God, and finally, his teacher. By putting a gun in his own mouth and pulling the trigger, he is symbolically killing Tyler. He's rejecting that easy, destructive nihilism and finally, taking responsibility for his own actions in his own life. So, after all the blood and the explosions and the soap making, what is this film actually trying to tell us? Where does it leave us, the audience, just standing there in the rubble? Here's the bottom line. The film gives us this powerful diagnosis of a societal problem, but it absolutely rejects the cure that Tyler is selling. The narrator's final act isn't blowing up buildings. It's choosing Marla. It's choosing human connection. It's choosing to deal with his own mess. The message isn't blame society. It's take responsibility for yourself. And this is the question the film just leaves hanging in the air as the credits roll and the pixies start playing. It brilliantly points out the disease of modern alienation, and it shows us the horrifying end of one revolutionary path. But by rejecting Tyler, is the film just sending the narrator, and by extension us, right back into that same IKEA-furnished world that broke him in the first place? That, I think, is the real fight the film wants us to have a conversation about.